Think about the last app you opened, or the last thing you searched online, or the last time you scrolled through social media. Every single one of those actions is being logged, recorded, and stored by companies you've likely never heard of. Your location, your health habits, your financial behavior, your social connections, all of it, collected continuously, combined into detailed portfolios, and used in ways most of us never see and never agreed to. According to a 2023 Pew Research Center survey of over 5,000 US adults, 67% of Americans say that they understand little to nothing about what companies actually do with their personal information. And 72% say they believe there should be more government regulations over how companies handle this data. That number, 72%, includes majority of both Republicans and Democrats. That kind of agreement across party lines is rare and it tells us something important. The American public already knows something's wrong. They just don't always know how to describe it or what to do about it. Today, I'm going to help with both of those things. Before I go any further, I want to make it clear that everything I'm sharing today is grounded in primary sources, not opinion pieces, not headlines. My research draws from 4 key documents. The first is a 2024 Federal Trade Commission staff report titled A Look Behind the Screens, which investigated the data practices of 9 of the biggest social media and video streaming companies in the country. This includes Meta, YouTube, Amazon, and TikTok. The second is the FTC's own 2023 Privacy and Data Security Update, which covers federal enforcement actions the agency has taken against companies like GoodRx, BetterHelp, and Amazon. The third is IBM's 2024 Cost of Data Breach Report, which analyzed over 600 real organizations globally and has been the industry benchmark for breach data for 19 consecutive years. And the fourth is the Pew Research Center's October 2023 survey titled How Americans View Data Privacy, which surveyed 5,101 US adults and provides some of the most detailed public opinion data available on this topic. These are government investigations, federal enforcement records, and peer-reviewed research. I encourage you to look all of them up after this presentation. So, here's my central argument. The US government should pass stronger federal data privacy laws. Tech companies are currently collecting enormous amounts of personal data without meaningful user consent. The laws we have in place are too weak and too fragmented to protect most Americans, and stronger comprehensive federal legislation would give people genuine control over their own information while holding corporations accountable in ways they are not today. To make that case, I'm going to walk you through 3 main points. First, how data collection works and why consent is largely just an illusion. Secondly, what the absence of federal privacy law actually costs ordinary people. And third, what a real federal privacy law would look like and why the public and experts alike agree it's strongly overdue. Let's start with what is actually happening. In September 2024, the Federal Trade Commission released a landmark investigation into 9 of the largest platforms in the country. What they found goes well beyond what most people imagine when they think about data collection. These companies were not just tracking what you do on their platforms, they were purchasing data from third-party brokers about people who had never even signed up for their service. They were building profiles that combined your location history, your browsing patterns, your health signals, your purchase behavior, even your social connections into detailed dossiers, and in the vast majority of cases, they were retaining that data indefinitely with no automatic deletion, no clear limit, and no simple way for users to stop it. The FTC described this as what it's called a surveillance ecosystem, one that operates largely out of sight and mostly without meaningful user knowledge. The business model, as the reports made clear, is built around monetizing this surveillance. The more data a company holds about you, the more valuable its advertising inventory becomes. Your personal information is not a byproduct of the services you use. It is the product. And here's what makes that even more troubling. Most users genuinely have no idea this is happening, and the systems that are supposed to inform them are designed to fail at that job. According to the Pew survey, 56% of Americans say they were always or most always agreeing to privacy policies without even reading them. That number is not surprising when you consider that those policies actually look like. Major platform privacy policies can run to tens of thousands of words. They are drafted by legal teams whose goal is to protect the company, not to communicate clearly with the users. The language is technical. The disclosures are buried, and the consent mechanism is designed to create a single click of agreement that users make before they have any real understanding of what they are accepting. Clicking the I agree button at the bottom of one of those screens is not informed consent in any meaningful sense. It is a binary choice between accepting full data collection or losing access to a service that billions of people depend on for work, communication, and daily life. That is not a real choice. It is a forced transaction dressed up to look like one. And the legal framework that allows companies to call that consent is a major part of the problem. Now that we understand how data collection works and why the consent framework surrounding it is so inadequate, let us look at what the law is actually doing to protect people and why that answer is, in most of the country, almost nothing. The United States has no comprehensive federal data privacy law. That is not an overstatement or rhetorical flourish. It is the legal reality. Unlike the European Union, which enacted the General Data Protection Regulation in 2018, the US relies on a patchwork of older, narrower laws that cover specific industries, such as health data under HIPAA or children's data under COPPA, and leaves massive gaps everywhere else as of today. Only about 15 states have passed their own comprehensive privacy laws. That means residents in the other 35 states have no meaningful state-level privacy protection at all. Congress has attempted to address this. A bipartisan bill called the Americans Data Privacy and Protection Act passed out of the committee with broad support from members of both parties. It was widely viewed as the most significant privacy bill in US history. And it stalled. It never made it to the floor. It never became a law. Meanwhile, the FTC itself, in its 2024 surveillance report, explicitly recommended that Congress pass comprehensive federal privacy legislation. Think about what that means. The agency that's supposed to be protecting consumers from corporate data abuse is telling Congress it does not currently have the authority to do that job properly. The watchdog is asking for a leash that actually works. The consequences of that legal gap are not abstract. They are measurable. They are growing, and they affect real people. According to IBM's 2024 Cost of a Data Breach report, which studied over 600 organizations globally, the average cost of a data breach reached $4.88 million in 2024. That is an all-time high in the 19-year history of the report. It represents a 10% increase from the year before, the largest single year jump since 2020. And nearly half of all breaches in 2024 exposed customer personal information directly: names, social security numbers, financial records, and health data. These are not just corporate balance sheet losses. These are people whose identities were stolen, whose credit was damaged, whose personal accounts were compromised because companies that held their data were not legally required to do enough to protect it. And because there is no strong federal law mandating the data companies must secure how long they can keep it, or how they can share it, or who they can share it with, there is very little legal pressure on companies to invest seriously in privacy protection when the cost of breach, even an expensive one, can still be cheaper than the cost of building real safeguards from the start. We have seen the scale of the problem, and we have seen what it costs when there are no strong laws to contain it. Now let's talk about what the solution would actually look like, and why there is more reason for optimism here than you might suspect. A strong federal privacy data law would give every American 4 concrete enforcement rights they do not currently have. The first is the right to know. The right to see exactly what data a company holds about you, what it's being used for, and who it's been shared with or sold to. The company is the right to delete. The second is the right to delete. The right to request that a company remove your personal information from its system and require that it actually comply. The third is a data minimization. A legal requirement that companies collect only the data that is strictly necessary for the service they are providing, and nothing more. This would fundamentally change the surveillance business model by cutting off the supply of excess data at the source. And the fourth is a real financial penalties, meaning fines tied to companies' revenue, similar to how the EU's GDPR works, so that violating user privacy becomes genuinely costly rather than just another line item in a company's legal budget. The FTC's 2024 report explicitly recommended all four of these provisions as the foundation of any effective federal framework. These are not radical ideas, they are baseline protections that already exist in dozens of other countries. They would bring the United States in line with the rest of the developing world on an issue that affects every person who uses the internet. And here is the part of the issue that often gets overlooked in political conversations. The public is already there. According to the Pew Research Center, 72% of Americans want more government regulation of what companies can do with their personal information. That includes 78% of Democrats and 68% of Republicans. In the current political environment, finding an issue where nearly 7 out of 10 members of both parties agree is genuinely remarkable. The FTC has already begun using its existing authority, bringing enforcement actions against Amazon, GoodRx, BetterHelp, and plenty of others for privacy violations. But as the agency itself has noted, those enforcement actions are constrained by the absence of comprehensive legislation. The FTC can respond to specific violations. However, it can't set the baseline rules that would prevent those violations from happening in the first place. That is what a federal law would do. The public wants it. The regulatory agency wants it. Bipartisan legislation support has existed. What has been missing is the political will to finish the job. So let me bring all of this together. Today we covered three main ideas. First, major tech companies are engaged in a system of large-scale data collection that most users never truly understand or meaningfully consented to, and the FTC's own investigation documented the scope of that surveillance in detail. Second, the absence of comprehensive federal privacy laws leaves most Americans with almost no meaningful legal protection when the data is misused, breached, or sold. And the financial and personal cost of that gap are at record highs and still growing. Third, a strong federal privacy law built around the right to know, the right to delete, data minimization, and real enforcement would give everyday Americans the protection they need, the protection that majority of both parties already say they want, and the kind of accountability that would change the calculus for corporations that currently treat user data as a resource with almost no legal limits. Everyone in this room uses technology every day. You can be part of pushing for this change. Stay informed, talk about it, and when you have the opportunity to make your voice heard to your elected representatives, take it. Tell them that your data belongs to you. We would never accept a company walking into our homes, reading our personal documents, reading our conversations, and then selling what they found to the highest bidder. But right now, that is essentially what's happening every single time you go online. And the law is barely doing anything to stop it. It is time that changed.